Hi there, I'm Amy Vassar, and welcome to the Spring 2019 semester of Spanish 101. This video is the first in a series that I'll be doing this semester. This is something fairly new that I do with my online courses, where every week I record just a single take video, and it can be a number of different topics. Sometimes I'll walk you through an assignment that's coming up that's something new. Other times I might go through some of my Spanish Lab assignments that are particularly difficult. I'll go through and look at which have the lowest average grade by Wednesday, and go through a couple of those and walk you through how to get the best possible grade on those assignments. Sometimes I'll just, kind of chat with you about where we are and what's coming up and what I'm noticing in the class, or something that I think might be helpful for all of you. They'll be pretty low-key, pretty informal. They're unscripted and unpolished. So this is probably one of the more polished ones because I'm using a recording room at the college, but sometimes I'll be holed up in my bedroom trying to avoid the 3 kids and 3 dogs and all of their noise at my house, or sitting in my car, again, to avoid the noise at my house, or sometimes it'll be like this, a combination of a screencast and webcam videos. Sometimes it'll just be a video of me talking. Other times I might just do a screencast if there's something that's I really just want to show you that's computer based. So it'll be a combination of things, usually 5 to 7 minutes. I generally go over that in week 1, but we'll see how I do this time. So today what I wanted to walk you through is just a little bit of an overview of our course in Blackboard and my Spanish Lab, because I know most of you are already well into week 1, but just in case there's anything that you missed, or for those of you who are kind of getting a late start in the week, I thought a good quick overview of the course would be helpful. So I'm starting in Blackboard, and I want that to be set as sort of a practice for you as well. I want you to always start in Blackboard. You'll spend a lot of time in my Spanish Lab, so it probably at some point in the semester will be tempting just to go straight to my Spanish Lab, and you say, I know that that's where the bulk of my work this week is going to be. But keep in mind that there are some things that are only found in Blackboard, like the culture discussion boards that we'll be doing in English, the signature assignment that's due later in the semester that's a pretty hefty grade, some of the presentations, some of the, let's see, what else? Anyway, the journals, the quick writes, those are only in Blackboard. So just be aware that Blackboard is a significant part of your points for the course, as well as some of the content. And that's what I'd like to show you, is some of the content that's in here. So first of all, the announcements. This is where you will always land when you enter the course, and I post at least weekly announcements. A lot of times it ends up being more, like twice a week, sometimes even 3 times a week. I promise week 1 is the only time that I probably will post 4 announcements in a week. But there's my faculty information, my office hours. I keep my office hours, my scheduled office hours, pretty minimal, but it's because I know that I'm not going to find a time that's going to work for everybody. So instead, I'm mostly available by appointment. So contact me if there's a time that's good for you to make connection, either in person or by phone or online chat, whatever is best for you. The syllabus and schedule, which are also in the week 1 folder, are always readily accessible here. It might be a good idea to print those off so you have easy access to hard copies of those if you have a good way to organize paper for your schooling. And then the bulk of your time in Blackboard will be spent here on the assignments button. So for right now, all you see is the My Spanish Lab link and the week 1 folder. But by Friday of each week, I'll have the next week's folder up there. Each week officially starts on Monday and ends on Sunday at midnight. But I know some of you are working, or you have family and other obligations, and your schedules are busy, so you're mostly trying to make use of weekend time. So I try to make sure that every folder is open for the weekend prior to the week and weekend that it's due. So you can get in as you're finishing up, say this week as you're finishing up week 1, you can also on Friday and Saturday and Sunday get into week 2 and just start looking through some of that material and getting a feel for what's coming up in that week. So that's why I have it set up like that. If you need anything open early, if you know you're going to be traveling or have some big thing due at work, if you're an accountant and you know you're going to have tax day coming up or something like that, and you want to work ahead, let me know. I can always open folders early as well. So let me know if there's anything that I can do to support you that way. Then as you get into the weekly folders, most of them won't be this long. Week 1, there's a lot of extra stuff that's just kind of getting familiar with the course and everything. But once we get into the content, I want to show you a couple things. For all of the vocabulary and estructuras or grammar lessons, I will have additional support materials posted here in Blackboard. So in that case, it was all related to the textbook and my Spanish lab, but this one you'll see that there's a video that I've created. For some of them, there's videos that other faculty members at CWI or just other teachers on YouTube have created. So the textbook, of course, has its explanation of everything, and that's great, but the textbook explanation isn't going to work for everybody, and it might not always work for you the first time that you read it through. So instead, I always, in addition to the textbook materials, I always add extra materials to it, and that's what you're going to find here in Blackboard. The Blackboard is kind of like the backbone or the skeleton of the course, where all of the main content is kind of organized and structured for you in the way that I would recommend that you consume it. So, for example, it would be possible for you to look and see, okay, these are we're doing part 1 of chapter 1. So I'm just going to go through and read all of that in the textbook, and then I'm going to go through, look at what's due this Sunday night in my Spanish lab, and I'm going to do all those assignments. That is a temptation, and that can be a good way to do it if you are familiar with the content already. But if you're new to Spanish or you're struggling at all with the content in the class, I recommend that you take it kind of one chunk at a time. So like you look at this lesson, you read the pages assigned in the textbook, you look at the additional supplemental materials to the extent that you feel like you need to have a good grasp of it, and then you go to my Spanish lab and complete just those activities, just starting with O1 and going through O6. And then once you're done and you have a grade that you're happy with on each of those, then you move on to the next section and do the same thing. You read the textbook pages, you use the supplemental materials, and then you go do my Spanish lab assignments and work your way through the course content or the weekly content that way. So that's what how I recommend approaching Blackboard. Always, when you have your time set aside to work on Spanish, always start with Blackboard. Check for announcements, check for where you're at in the weekly assignments, and then switch over to my Spanish lab. So speaking of which, we're going to do that. I do want to call your attention briefly to just a couple more things here in Blackboard before we move. One is course documents. There I have a number of just additional materials that are not bound by a certain chapter. They're applicable across the board. Looks like some of them aren't loading right now, but they should be in there. There's some verb conjugation resources. There's the rubric for the discussion board, for the live chats, links for the flashcards that somebody else has already made for you in Quizlet. Those you can add to your phone or computer or whatever and have access to them easily. There's the QR codes that you can access with your smartphone also. And instructions for typing special characters in Spanish when we do our first composition. Those will be helpful to you. And then the discussion board here, when we have discussion board assignments, you can get to those either by clicking here or through the weekly folder. Those will go to the same place. And then there's a calendar here for tutoring. So I don't believe that there's a Spanish tutor assigned yet in the tutoring center, but there are Spanish faculty who are available. So there'll be time scheduled eventually here for probably Spanish, French, and ASL, sign language instructors. So look and see when there are Spanish faculty available or eventually a Spanish tutor available. And if you are wanting to visit with somebody and my schedule isn't working for you, you can visit with another faculty member or a tutor that's been hired by the tutoring center, and that's a great resource for you. Keep an eye on your grades. I do make every effort to keep grades up to date, and so keep track of those. Okay, so moving over to my Spanish lab. When you first enter, you'll see this pop-up. Please go through and do all of these things. Make sure that you've tuned up your browser and disabled pop-up blockers. Those things are really important to do, and setting your course time zone. So if you click on an assignment and nothing happens, probably you have pop-ups blocked. And so you need to go through that process. Or if you look up here in your address bar, look at the right-hand side, and there should be a little red X or some sort of mark, depending on what browser you're using, and you can click that and allow pop-ups from this address. And then once you're done, you've done all those, you can say, don't show me this again, and continue on there. When you get into My Spanish Lab, the e-text is here. It seems to be working well. I can't access it from Student View, but if you pull up the e-text is great because it allows you to play the audio for the vocabulary. So I do recommend using the e-text, even if you prefer the print textbook for your reading. I do recommend using the e-text for, at least for listening to the audio of the vocabulary. And then once you get in here, one thing on this first page is right here, on mine it says 0 unread comments. On yours, there's a chance that at some point in the semester, it'll say that you have an unread comment. And what that means is that I went in and I saw that you had a low grade on a My Spanish Lab assignment. And so I gave you either written or oral feedback on how you could improve your grade on that assignment. So I don't do it all the time. I kind of do it as I have a chance or as I know that there are some problematic assignments. And I mostly will do it for people who are in fairly early in the week working on it. By the time it gets to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm not going to have time to go in and give all of that personalized feedback. But I do try to do that early in the week when I have a chance to. All right, then the next thing, and I talked about this in my announcement earlier, but the assignments list, I really prefer the to-do list view. You'll find what works best for you, but I like the to-do list view. So that's where I would go first, is always to that to-do list view, and you can see everything that's due on the most immediate deadline. So coming up this Sunday, it'll show you, and you can see in this, my student profile, I haven't updated my time zone. That's why it shows that it's due at 9:59. If I had updated it, it would show that it was due at 11:59 p.m. And it shows how many attempts I have remaining. So if I had already started it, it would show over here what my current grade was and how many remaining attempts I had, and I can start it and launch it from right there. So make sure that you're using a view here in My Spanish Lab that works well for you and helps you feel like you know what's going on, you know what's coming up, and what you need to be working on. So this to-do list view, if you click Show More, it'll show you everything that's due for that upcoming deadline. And then it'll even go into the next deadline, so you can kind of see what you've got coming up after this after the most immediate one. So let's see. There is a grade book here in My Spanish Lab, so you can use that, or you can use, under assignments, you can use the completed view and see what your grade has been on the assignments that you've completed. Either of those will work to keep track of what you're doing, but do keep in mind, though, that your overall grade in the course will be most accurately reflected in Blackboard, because that includes everything. It includes the My Spanish Lab assignments in the correct proportion to the other grades in the course. So when you're looking at where you stand in the class, Blackboard is going to be your most accurate grade as opposed to My Spanish Lab. I think that's pretty much it. If you are using the e-text and you're wanting to have something that's a little bit more on the go and not sitting at your computer or on your laptop, there is an e-text app that you can download. If you look for Pearson e-text, then you can download the Arriba text there, and that works pretty well, and it seems like it loads fairly quickly, and it still has the audio that you can play. So if you have a busy schedule and you're on the go a lot, that is one thing that I recommend. I went way over my 5 to 7 minutes, so I hope that is helpful to you. Please keep checking in Blackboard and My Spanish Lab. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm here to support you in any way that I can, and I will see you all online.